General Hospital spoilers tease that Drew, who was once a beloved character, is now slowly changing into a man many no longer recognize. His every action seems to be driven by personal ambition and cunning calculations. He is no longer the defender of the values he once stood for, but instead a man willing to use any tool at his disposal to achieve his goals. This has gradually led Drew down a path from which he cannot return, and the consequences are becoming more serious than ever. Drew's new changes in actions go beyond forcing Michael and Willow into defensive positions, but also involve him manipulating the emotions of others, especially Wiley, to achieve his dark goals. Drew knows that in order to gain the trust and approval of those around him, he must create irresistible conditions, and using pressure on Wiley is the way he chooses. The boy, although innocent, becomes a tool in Drew's hands, pushed into a situation that he cannot fully understand, but is enough to cause great turmoil in everyone's lives. One of the biggest shocks Drew is creating is that he has gradually lost control of himself, not only with the adults around him, but also with a child. The lies Drew tells Michael about not wanting to be with Wiley and Amelia anymore, along with the threats and coercion, only deepen everyone's dilemma. This not only makes the family situation more tense, but also creates an environment of suspicion and anxiety, where Wiley, an innocent child, does not understand why his life is so chaotic. Not only is Drew emotionally manipulating Michael and Willow, but he is now directly threatening Wiley's safety. Drew's actions are no longer protective or loving, but a series of clever but cruel calculations. He has turned himself into someone no one can trust. And now coercing and controlling Wiley is just part of Drew's overall strategy to gain absolute power in the family. What's even more worrying is that Drew's change in attitude is not only affecting his loved ones, but is likely to come as a huge shock to everyone who witnesses this change. Things are becoming more dangerous than ever, and it seems Drew has no remorse for what he has done. He is controlling the lives of those around him, while not realizing that he himself is becoming a dangerous person in the eyes of everyone. If Drew continues down this path, not only Wiley but his entire family will face unforeseeable consequences. The pressures Drew creates are not just lies, but specific actions that are destroying everything he once held dear, making all the relationships around him worse. And the most worrying thing is that Drew does not seem to intend to stop. He has gone too far, and every step he takes now only adds more stress, doubt, and chaos to everyone's lives, especially Wiley's. Drew's actions not only endanger himself, but may also plunge his entire family into a crisis that is difficult to repair. Drew's story is no longer just a man's journey to seek justice or protect his loved ones. It is now an internal confrontation, a war within himself, where wrong decisions, blind and cruel actions have led him to an irreversible turning point. The changes in Drew's character are not just simple changes, but a strong transformation from a hero, someone everyone once believed in and loved, to someone he himself could not recognize. Everything he once fought for, every ideal he once pursued, is now falling apart and becoming a burden he cannot escape. Drew, before, was a person who always believed in justice and the rightness of his decisions. He was a person who stood up for noble values, a person who always protected his family and friends. But now, as he begins to change, no longer doing what he believes is right, but simply seeking control, he has lost his way. The actions Drew has taken in the past, from manipulating Michael and Willow, to hurting Wiley, are just the tip of the iceberg of a deeper problem. Drew is now facing himself, facing consequences he could not have foreseen, and perhaps, cannot undo. The shocks Drew faces go beyond the loss of his relationship with his family, to the strategies he has used to maintain power and control. Everything Drew has done, every attempt to keep power in his hands, is now backfiring in a profound change of character. Drew is no longer the hero the audience once loved. He becomes a villain, willing to use any means to achieve his goals, including manipulating the emotions and psychology of those around him, especially Wiley, the child he considers a tool in his hands. The biggest problem Drew faces now is that he has pushed things too far, to the point of no return. The troubles he creates are not simply family conflicts, but a series of wrong actions that he cannot undo. Every lie, every wrong action Drew commits pushes him further away from the people he loves. Every control Drew tries to maintain is no longer protection or care, but a brutal overwhelm, a strategy that makes him fall deeper and deeper into darkness. In fact, what Drew does not only hurts others, but also deeply harms himself. He doesn't seem to realize that his actions are completely destroying the relationship he built, and when everything falls apart, Drew will be the one to blame. His manipulation of Wiley's emotions is not only cruel to a child, but also a sign that Drew has lost everything he once respected. The attack on Wiley's psyche. The exploitation of his emotions for his own purposes is the clearest evidence of Drew's complete loss of direction. Especially when new shocks are exploding as Drew's actions begin to create unforeseen consequences. From manipulating Wiley to tense confrontations with Michael and Willow, Drew not only pushes his family into a serious crisis but also creates an environment of doubt, anxiety, and conflict. This leaves Drew not only facing the disapproval of his loved ones, but also the fact that he is destroying everything he has built. With each action, Drew is falling deeper into a spiral from which he cannot escape. The madness he creates, from terrible lies to emotional manipulation of a child, is gradually turning him into a character that no one can trust anymore. Drew's actions are now not just simple shocks but irreversible changes, leading him into a confrontation with no way out. His every step is no longer decisive, but awkward, as he realizes that he has created something irreversible. And now, as Drew stands facing defeat, everything is about to explode. What he has done, the attacks he has caused, have created an unprecedented tension. Shock after shock is proving that Drew has gone too far and is beyond saving. This change affects not only Drew himself, but also everyone around him. And as things spiral out of control, Drew faces a big question: can he stop before it's too late, or will he continue down this dead-end path? Drew's story is no longer one of sacrifice and protecting loved ones. He is now engaged in an internal battle that he cannot control. Drew's decisions are gradually marking a major change in his nature, from a once respected hero to a character that is now unrecognizable. These changes are not only related to his actions, but also a deep reflection of how he has begun to adopt the tactics that Shiloh used: psychological manipulation, exploiting the emotions of those around him to achieve his own goals. This change begins with the relationship between Drew and Michael. Previously, the two were close brothers, going through many challenges and facing difficulties in life together. But now, that relationship is gradually deteriorating. Drew is no longer the person Michael once trusted and loved. He begins to use ruthless tactics to manipulate not only Michael but also his family, using lies and actions to put Michael in a difficult position. Drew uses the tensions in his family relationships to achieve his own goals, and these changes not only make Michael feel betrayed, but also cause everyone around him to begin to doubt Drew. Drew's approach to life and relationships is now very different. Instead of seeking approval or protecting his loved ones, he uses every means to gain power, including manipulating Michael and Willow's emotions. This not only causes his family to gradually fall apart, but also creates a great threat to the people he loves. Drew begins to see relationships as tools, not to build relationships, but to achieve his own personal goals. This is completely opposite of the person Drew used to be, who always put his family first and was willing to sacrifice for those he loved. Drew's shift from Shiloh to a more direct version of himself, such as manipulating the emotions and feelings of others, only makes his transformation more apparent. Shiloh, a villain Drew once fought against, now seems to be a model Drew is creepily imitating. Drew's actions increasingly resemble Shiloh's own schemes for controlling those around her. And this only heightens the fear that Drew is about to become a full-fledged villain. Instead of protecting his family and loved ones, Drew begins to exploit their emotions for his own gain, just as Shiloh did to his victims in the past. What's worrying is that when Drew begins to use these tactics, he doesn't realize that he's going down a path from which there's no turning back. His manipulations of Michael, Willow, and Wiley have not only torn apart their family, but have also caused deep wounds that may never heal. Drew has entered a war that he thought he could control. But now, things are out of his control. His relationship with Michael is slowly coming to a standstill, and Drew is starting to feel the backlash from those he once trusted. This only pushes their relationship into a greater crisis. The shocks Drew is causing are not just simple family arguments, but profound changes in the way he treats people. He is using dark strategies to create division, tension, and doubt in his relationships. Drew's actions are no longer just bad decisions, but a subtle oppression. A manipulation that he uses to control everything around him. From pressuring Michael to manipulating Wiley's emotions, Drew not only puts his loved ones in difficult situations, but also makes everything more complicated and unpredictable. Meanwhile, Michael is no longer the friend Drew once knew. He is facing increasingly strong resistance from Michael, who has begun to realize that Drew's actions are no longer for the good of the family. Michael, although trying to stay calm, cannot ignore the changes in Drew's behavior. He begins to feel trapped, and their relationship becomes strained beyond repair. As Drew tries to exert more power and control over his family, things become more serious. The tension between him and Michael is no longer just small arguments, but a full-blown war, where each side has its own goals and reasons, but neither side is willing to give in. Drew is not only faced with Michael's resistance, but also the fact that he has gone too far and there is no way to fix his mistakes. The changes in the way Drew approaches his life and relationships are creating an environment of doubt, stress, and anxiety, and if he doesn't find a way to fix things, the war between Drew and Michael will not end without painful consequences. Wiley, the child that the Corinthos family loved and protected, is now gradually losing control. Not only by external factors but also by the actions of Drew, who was once an indispensable part of his life. The changes in Wiley's behavior and emotions are not random. They come from the strong and intentional influences of Drew, who has gradually turned love into a tool of manipulation, making everything more chaotic than ever. Wiley, with his innocent heart and pure spirit, is being pushed further and further away from the loving arms of his biological father Michael and mother Carly. The shocks that Drew creates in the boy's life come not only from the lies he tells, but also from the subtle manipulation in the way he treats Wiley. Drew deliberately created confusion in the boy's mind, causing Wiley to begin to question the true feelings of his biological father Michael, which caused the boy's inherent trust in Michael to gradually collapse. The boy could not distinguish between truth and lies, as Drew's changes in actions continuously pushed Wiley into a state of confusion and anxiety. This was not just a change in a family, but a revelation of a much darker world that Drew was trying to create. Drew's lies, especially his claim that Michael did not want to be with Wiley anymore, were not just harmless fabrications, but sophisticated weapons used by Drew to tear apart the family relationship that the boy loved. The way Drew manipulated Wiley's emotions and made him believe these lies was a shock not only to Michael and Carly, but to everyone who witnessed this change. Meanwhile, Michael and Carly, two parents who have always protected their children at all costs, now face an extremely difficult challenge. They are faced with a Drew who is completely different from the person they once trusted and loved. Drew is now not only a temporary father to Wiley but also a manipulator, a liar, and a person who is a threat to the Corinthos family. Drew's actions, not only in fabricating false stories, but also in the way he treats Wiley, are hurting the boy's feelings, and putting Michael and Carly in a difficult position where they cannot easily protect their son from this attack. Michael, who has always loved and protected Wiley, now faces a feeling of helplessness. He cannot believe that Drew, who was once his best friend and family member, could use such terrible methods to influence his son. Drew's every move not only hurts Michael, but also makes him feel betrayed by the person he once considered an ally. The relationship between Michael and Drew, which was once a close friendship, has now become a battle not only over child custody but also over trust and betrayal. Carly, the strong and resilient mother, is also facing the painful truth that Drew is no longer the person she once trusted. Carly's sense of protection for her children is now threatened by Drew's actions. She cannot sit idly by and watch her son be affected by the shocks Drew is creating. Carly will not let Drew continue to control Wiley's life without resistance. However, this family crisis is not only coming from Drew, but also from the division he is creating among the members of the Corinthos family. Both Michael and Carly now face difficult choices. Can they keep the family together, or will Drew continue to tear things apart? This change is truly pushing the Corinthos family into a greater challenge than anything they have ever faced. Every action Drew takes only adds to the tension in the family, and every step he takes makes everyone feel like they can no longer trust anyone. The shocks Drew creates are not just lies, but real injuries to his loved ones, causing every relationship in the family to become more fractured than ever. Now, as the situation becomes more serious, Michael and Carly must find a way to restore stability to Wiley and protect their child from Drew's manipulations. But can they do it when things are getting worse and Drew is becoming an uncontrollable threat? Willow is facing one of the most difficult times of her life. The new changes that are taking place in her life come not only from her surroundings but also from the relationships she once trusted. Among them, the relationship with Drew is becoming one of the biggest challenges, as it gradually turns into a control that Willow cannot escape. She is gradually losing control of what happens in her life. And this is not only hurting her but also threatening everyone she loves. Drew, who Willow could rely on before, is no longer a trusted companion. His actions are gradually changing the way Willow views their relationship. Drew is no longer simply someone she can love and trust, but he has gradually become someone who manipulates and controls every decision in Willow's life. These changes do not come immediately, but slowly creep into Willow's mind, making her unaware that she is being controlled and manipulated. Over time, Drew uses pressure to force Willow into situations that she cannot refuse. He uses Willow's love and trust in him as a tool to manipulate her emotions. The lies and strategies Drew uses not only make Willow feel like she has lost her freedom, but also make her start to doubt what she really wants. Every decision Drew makes, every action he takes now makes Willow feel like she is no longer herself. She is no longer able to decide what is best for herself, but instead she is forced to face the imposition of Drew, the person she trusted but now lies and manipulates her. This story is not just about Drew and Willow's relationship, but about manipulation and the influence one person can have on another in a relationship. The relationship, which had been a friendship and a romantic love, now became an internal battle that Willow could not win without outside intervention. She gradually realized that her dependence on Drew not only took away her autonomy, but also made her feel like she no longer had any value in the relationship. Willow became Drew's pawn, and that left her feeling hurt and hopeless. What was most worrying was that this change affected not only Willow but also those around her, especially Michael. Willow and Michael's relationship, once trusting and loving, is now being tested by Drew's manipulation. Michael feels like he is being pushed out of Willow's life, not because of her changing feelings, but because of the control Drew is exerting over her. Michael begins to feel helpless and alone, unable to help Willow escape Drew's shadow, and this leaves him facing an incredibly difficult choice. Can he protect Willow from this manipulation, or will their relationship fail? The turmoil in the relationship between Willow, Drew and Michael is not only a battle between love and control, but also a battle between keeping faith and protecting herself from the manipulation of others. Willow begins to realize that, if she does not act now, she will not only lose herself but also hurt the people around her. The shock and intimidation Drew inflicts is not just about the lies he tells her, but the lasting impact it will have on her and the people she loves. The situation is getting worse, as Drew's control over Willow becomes stronger and more obvious with each passing day. Willow must not only deal with her own complicated emotions, but also fight the pressure Drew is creating, making it difficult for her to breathe. Every decision she makes is now influenced by Drew, and she feels less and less in control of her life. This change has created a situation that Willow cannot handle alone. She needs the help of those around her to break free from Drew's control. But is there anyone strong enough to help her break free from this trap? Willow's story has now become more than just a love story. it's a story of liberation and self-determination in a relationship. Things are going further than she could have imagined, and if she doesn't change, it could lead to a disaster she can't fix.